Snoopy has been a mascot for astronauts in the U.S. space program for quite a long time, but why and how did that cartoon dog become so connected with NASA?
Well, to find out more, we're talking to Benjamin Clark, the curator of the Schulz Museum in California, who have just opened a temporary exhibit called Snoopy in Orbit.
Are you a big Snoopy fan? Let us know via our social media pages at Space and Things Podcast on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook, or via the contact form on our website.
And please consider joining us over at patreon.com/Space and Things. But right now, enjoy episode 153 of the Space and Things podcast.
Oh my God! Unbelievable, but it is right this time.
You're listening to the Space and Things podcast with Dave Giles and Emily Carney.
I'm Emily Carney.
And I'm Dave Giles, and welcome to episode 153 of our podcast. How you doing, Emily?
I'm doing great. I'm doing good. I just came back from yet another trip to Epcot.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I live close to there, just so people know I'm not like blowing all my money there. So I live a few miles out, so I can drive whenever I want there. But yeah, we had a great weekend. How are you doing, Dave?
Good, thanks. Yeah, Floridians get a discount, don't they, as well? So that's always good.
Yeah, we kind of get spoiled.
Yeah. Do you know what? I read something. I was reading the Photograph in America's First Astronauts book. We interviewed J.L. Pickering and John Bisney about a few weeks ago. And in the back, it said, what did the astronauts do next? And I read something. You must know this, but I didn't know this. Gordo Cooper ended up helping out Epcot. Did you know that? He was working for Epcot.
Yeah, he did. And I think he helped with the design of Space Mountain as well in the early 70s because NASA wanted to make it not accurate, but they wanted to give people a feeling of motion or something like that. So I believe he helped design Space Mountain or consulted on Space Mountain as well. So yeah, he worked on Epcot and all that. Yeah, he was big with Disney. A few astronauts, I want to say, have gone on to have a Disney sort of connection because Disney does a lot as everybody, as y'all probably know. I don't need to tell everybody, and you know, Dave, but Disney has actually a lot of linkages with like space and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've used a lot of astronaut talent to help enhance their rides and their things. So it's really cool. I actually saw something cool. For those of you who haven't been there yet but may want to visit, there's a pavilion, the American Adventure in the World Showcase, and I feel stupid because I've never been in that pavilion.
Oh, it's amazing.
Okay, because I'm a dummy. I'm like, I'm American. I don't need to go in there. I live in America. So my niece, who's awesome, was like, why don't we go in the American Pavilion? I'm like, I live in America, but sure, I'll go in there, as one does. I'm trying to make myself sound snotty. So we went in there, and there's a friggin' McCall painting of STS-1 called Reaching for the Stars. And I was not aware of this. I think that painting used to be in the Horizons Pavilion in the early 80s, but I never knew where it went. I honestly was like, they probably moved it to his estate or maybe somewhere else in Disney, but I didn't know where they put it. Yeah. So we go in the pavilion and that painting was like right there and I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know it was in there. So I'd like to thank my niece for pointing that out. I got a bunch of pictures of it. And the American Adventure Pavilion is awesome. They also have a steakhouse called the Regal Eagle. And I bought a Sam the Eagle sipper cup there because I'm mentally about 12. So I had to have them. I love the Muppets. So yeah,
Amazing.
So that was really cool. So if you've never been to Epcot and you'd like to go there, if you go to the American Adventure in the World Showcase, they do have that painting, which I honestly was unaware that was there. So That was awesome. So yeah, kind of a neat little aside, but anyway.
Yeah, we've been accused before, Emily, of becoming a bit of a Disney infomercial at the start of our podcast because we do love talking about it.
It's not for everybody. I'm aware that not everyone loves Disney and that's fine, but I like it. But I'm not promoting it. I'm just saying, if you do go there, there are some cool space things there.
At Epcot, they've got a great space restaurant. It's not cheap, but it's extremely worth it.
I need to go there.
So there's plenty of stuff there at Epcot. So the American Pavilion, if you haven't seen the a cappella singers, they're incredible. But anyway, the main show that they've got there, it's a animatronic I think it's Thomas
Yeah.
Jefferson and Mark Twain.
I think it's Ben Franklin.
Ben Franklin,
It's Ben Franklin and
that's
Mark
it.
Twain. I had never seen the show.
It hasn't changed in 20 years. I remember it as a kid. Apart from the fact they've changed the ending, so it's very much about the idea of America and not just as being successful, but a place where people can come and get things wrong and try and learn from their mistakes and so on and so forth. And there's a montage at the end which has some space stuff in there, which is quite cool. But the thing that really got me during that montage is, for some reason, I don't know who created this, but Albert Einstein is suddenly American. And so's Elon Musk.
Elon Musk was too. I'm like,
hang on a moment.
yeah.
What?
When Elon showed up, I was like, no offense, no. And I'm not dissing Elon. I don't want to get again a million hate letters like, we love Elon, don't touch him. But Elon's not American.
Yeah.
So I was because me and my niece were sitting. I was with my niece and my sister. And when that came on, I was like, what? Like, I actually said it out loud, and the theater's quiet. And I'm like, huh? Like, he's not American. No disrespect against him, but he's not American.
Yeah.
But whatever. Maybe he's a naturalized citizen, or maybe he has an American passport. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But,
I'm sure that's it.
Yeah,
It was just,
I agree.
I bumped on that as well. I was like, what? Hang on.
Yeah, and Einstein, I agree. I was sort of like, he's not American. I don't know. I was expecting like some other weird stuff to show up. Like, I don't know. I think Alexander Graham Bell is in the show too, and I'm not sure. I could be wrong about this, and if I am, somebody please call me out. I think he's Canadian. I thought he was Canadian, or he had maybe a Canadian heritage of some sort. I could be wrong. I need to look it up. But I saw him, and I was like, I don't know if he's American. But not that being, Canada's pretty close to us, so I don't know. Whatever. I'll shut up. But
Yeah. Anyway.
yeah, there were a few historical inconsistencies, but that's okay.
Absolutely. All right. Anyway, on to this week's main feature. So we've been saying we wanted to do this one for a while now, and we've been presented with a perfect opportunity to do so. So Charles M. Schulz created the Peanuts comic strip in 1950, and it stars Charlie Brown and his pet dog Snoopy, two of the most famous characters in the world. Well, Snoopy became a mascot for NASA in the 60s and continues to be so. The Apollo 10 command module was named Charlie Brown, and the lunar module was called Snoopy. And Snoopy was recently used as a zero gravity indicator on the Artemis 1 mission. And there's a Snoopy award and all kinds of stuff. It's a big connection. It's a big connection.
Yeah, Snoopy is on a lot of T-shirts too. If you go to any of the NASA gift shops or Space Center gift shops, Snoopy is just all over the place. So he's ubiquitous.
Good word.
As far as like NASA is concerned. Yep. I took AP English. I'm kidding. Well, the Schulz Museum in Santa Rosa, California have recently opened a temporary exhibit called Snoopy in Orbit. And today we're talking to the curator of the museum, Benjamin L. Clark. He's been working for the museum since February 2018, so we're excited to find out all about Snoopy in space.
Every single place in the observable universe is either space or a thing. So this podcast is really about everything.
So, hello, Benjamin, and thank you so much for joining us on our podcast this week. Now, because this podcast is called Space and Things, here's the and things part. So, how did you become the curator of the Schulz Museum dedicated to the creator of Peanuts and Snoopy?
I answered the ad. The curator. I've been in museums for actually 20 years this summer. So for the last 5 I've been here. So I had a pretty good track record, and then applied to the job, and they liked my writing and how I do things. So here I am.
That's good. All right. So while Peanuts and Snoopy started during the 1950s, its popularity really skyrocketed during the 1960s. That's when you started seeing all the TV shows and the merchandise and everything like that. So why do you think Peanuts, its characters, and its catchphrases resonated so much worldwide during that decade?
Wow. There have been literally dissertations written about that. So there's a lot there. Unlike some of his contemporaries, Charles Schulz wrote and drew his comic strip completely by himself.
Nice.
Some of his contemporaries, once they got big national syndication kind of contracts, they would hire gag writers, they would hire studio artists to help draw the strip. But Charles Schulz was old school even in 1950 when the strip began, and wrote and drew every single comic strip in Peanuts by himself. And he poured everything into it of himself. So all of his childhood memories and feelings, he put into it. And I think people reading the strip in the 1950s, in the 1960s, it resonated because it was so honest. It was emotionally honest. And that was pretty weird to encounter on the comics page at that time, because it had gone through phases of adventure strips and slapstick comedy, and whereas Peanuts still retained a lot of comedy. I mean, it's a very funny strip. I laugh every day at my desk reading Peanuts, but there's still that emotional honesty that opens us to connect at a deeper level with these characters and the things that they go through. So I think that's the key part of why it just exploded in popularity at that time.
So moving on to the space element of our chat, I believe that the first official sighting of Snoopy and Peanuts as characters in space came during 1969's Apollo 10 mission, the program's lunar landing dress rehearsal. So tell us how the connection between NASA and Peanuts started and why it remained over the years.
So following the Apollo 1 disaster, NASA was wanting to establish a more deliberate safety program for their crewed missions, and wanted to, evaluate and really spend some time with safety. And they had tasked a man named Al Chop to do kind of head that up. And what he did is he reached out to Charles Schulz and he said, we were developing this program and we really need a friendly face to put on this program. Could we use Snoopy? And Schulz was flattered and really honored by that request and agreed to it. He did have a little bit of pushback from his syndicate. They said, if you tie your character to this, and he was talking about doing a series of strips where he could send Snoopy to the moon. They said, what if there's another accident? What if there's another tragedy? And your character will be forever linked with that. And he said, these people are risking their lives. I can have my comic characters, go along. And so that was kind of the genesis for the Silver Snoopy Award and the Crewed Flight Safety Program.
Tell us a little bit about the Snoopy Award. How much do you know about it? How many times has it been awarded? Is that a regular thing?
I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think the number is over 15,000 of them have been awarded since 1968, 69. Charles Schulz was actually one of the first people to get it.
Oh, wow.
His was awarded to him by Wally Schirra.
Nice.
And because he had, designed the Silver Snoopy, design and things. So they had a special presentation for him and gave him one of the earliest ones, and so which we have in our collection here at the museum.
Nice.
And it's really, really cool. So yeah, but no, I think something like 15,000 of them have been awarded in the time since 1968, 69. I think the earliest ones were 68.
And what are they usually given for? Just services to spaceflight? Is that how it works?
Yes, that's my understanding is to services, especially towards safety,
right?
In space flight, and it's given to NASA employees and contractors. So if you're a contractor working on a specific thing, you would probably also be eligible.
Yeah, I've seen one of them at the EAA Museum in Oshkosh. Jeannie Engel was awarded one for her work in mission control, and I've seen that one. I'm sure there's plenty of museums all over the place, though, right?
Yeah.
At present time, as your Snoopy in Orbit exhibit shows, many Snoopies have flown to the moon, the International Space Station, and likely someday beyond. What is your personal favorite Snoopy and Peanuts artifact in the exhibit, and what's the story behind it?
Oh my goodness, that's not fair to ask a curator their favorites.
Yeah.
I'm the curator. They're all my favorites. I get to pick them all. So that's one of the perks. We do have, it's the only piece of original Schulz art in this exhibition. We're still kind of untangling the story a little bit, but we have what looks like, we only have like a couple pieces of correspondence. Then we have this piece of art, and we're kind of like not sure how it all fits together. But it looks like early on, NASA had requested from Schulz maybe upwards of like 15 poses of Snoopy in the astronaut flight suit and or something. I'm not really sure what they asked of him to produce, but he apparently produced upwards of 15, more than a dozen of these drawings, and we have one of them. And it looks, you put it side by side with the silver Snoopy, and it's like, okay, he drew both of these at the same time. He's working through these various ideas and poses. And so this is kind of a cool thing. Maybe it wasn't a design for the silver Snoopy. Maybe it was a design for like the safety posters, which a lot of your listeners will be familiar with already, which feature Snoopy. So from that era. So we're not really sure what it is. It doesn't seem like it was ever used anywhere. It's a really curious piece, but it's really cool to see this kind of alternate pose from the hand of Charles Schulz of an astronaut Snoopy from, it looks like spring of like 68.
Wow.
Yeah, that's very cool indeed. How many flown Snoopies are in the exhibit?
There are, counting the silver Snoopy of Schulz's, we have 4, but 3 toys.
We've got a follow-up to that from one of our Patreon subscribers. Don Irwin has asked if there are any special tests that you're aware of that the materials may needed to have gone through to be considered safe for space travel.
Yes, I do. In fact, it looks like some of them in the past have just been the commercially available Snoopy plush. So I don't know what testing they would have gone through to ensure that they were the safest selection to make. I don't know, but I do know that for the Artemis 1 mission, the zero gravity indicator Snoopy that we have on exhibit now was rigorously tested, and in fact, his little custom flight suit, which is really really fun, is made of the exact. I mean, every atom of it is the exact materials NASA uses on their human-sized flight suits.
That's very cool.
It's extremely cool to see it in miniature.
That's insane. I love that. Do you have any special events planned to highlight this exhibit?
We do. Coming up on August 5th, we will have astronaut Mike Massimino here to talk about his experiences as an astronaut. He's flown a couple of different missions. And of course, he has the oldest of our space-flown Snoopies, which he has very generously lent to us here at the Schulz Museum. He has this incredible photograph of himself as a kid. I think it's from like 69, and he's holding the original, the first, astronaut Snoopy toy, where Snoopy's in his, flight suit and the helmet and the whole thing. And young Mike is wearing I think it's a homemade kind of astronaut flight suit costume, and he's holding the Snoopy. It's really great. And then he shared a photograph of himself with the exact same doll when he was on a mission on one of the shuttle missions. Really cool, really special thing to be able to have. So we're going to have astronaut Mike Massimino here August 5th, Saturday. But I believe tickets are already sold out. So, So if you haven't got your tickets yet, I'm afraid it might be too late.
Yeah, that's a really special story. The one of him. I think it was his mum who made the spacesuit. It's in his book. It's a wonderful story, and the fact that you've got that in your exhibit at the moment, that Snoopy doll is pretty cool.
Very, very cool.
So Charles Schulz died in 2000 after ending Peanuts. but the comic strips, the books, movies, television shows are really still very much alive and accessible today. People still love it. So why do you think these characters, especially Snoopy, why do you think they still endure?
It goes back to what I was saying earlier about Schultz's emotional honesty and his ability to kind of dig deep within himself and share those insecurities and capture those. He described them as small moments, and really it's like the pauses in between the words of a conversation. But he captures stuff like that in Peanuts. These things you think nobody in the existence of humankind has ever given this a thought. Anybody but me. But you know what? Charles Schulz did. And the thing is, a lot of other people do too. And I think a lot of people connect with that and with those characters. And Snoopy especially, so many of us, me included, we really identify, Snoopy is our favorite character, even though we know we are more like Charlie Brown. And we love Snoopy because of what he is capable of and his uninhibited nature. And we wish we could be like him.
Absolutely. So how do people decide how Snoopy is used these days? When NASA now get in contact and say, hey, we want Snoopy as our zero-G indicator for Artemis 1, do the family get a say in that? Is there a trust set up? Or is it kind of out there for anyone to use these days?
Definitely not around for anybody to use these days. There's a company, Peanuts Worldwide, which controls the use of Snoopy and the other Peanuts characters. And there's also Schulz Creative Associates, which Charles Schulz himself had set up. It's his studio. So the Schulz studio has a team of experts who review every single use of the characters. So if you see Snoopy on a lunchbox, Snoopy on school supplies, even the zero gravity indicator, specially custom built for NASA, it all gets reviewed by people who are deeply, deeply aware of these characters and the standards Charles Schulz himself laid out, how his characters are to be used. And yes, the family is involved with the studio as well. And so there are standards in place, which is why you don't see Snoopy on absolutely anything and everything. That's why the products are reviewed and are good things. It's not junk. And the way sometimes you see licensed characters and the art's flipped the wrong way and it's actually licensed and things. And you just kind of go, man, who's reviewing this? But they actually do have a team of people who do that.
And you may not know the answer to this, but Don Irwin also asked if there are plans for Snoopy to go on more Artemis missions. Is that connection between NASA and Snoopy going to endure?
The relationship with NASA is ongoing with Peanuts, so I wouldn't rule anything out. I don't know of any specific plans at this time, but I am not the first person they call to discuss these things. So I really hope Snoopy can go even further. The Snoopy that traveled on Artemis 1 is now one of the furthest traveled human-made objects. I mean, it's just incredible that he's gone something like 1.4 million miles, and I hope Snoopy will continue to find new frontiers for us.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Benjamin. We really enjoyed learning more about this connection between Snoopy and NASA, and long may it continue, in my opinion. And we wish you all the best with the exhibit as well. I believe it's running until January the 14th in 2024.
That sounds right.
So plenty of time for people to get out to Santa Rosa to check it out as well. So
yes, please do.
Yeah, I'm in California in October, so I'll try my very best.
This is the Space and Things podcast with Emily Carney and Dave Gillis.
Firstly, Benjamin has a wonderful voice, and I just want to say that because it was a pleasure to have him on in my headphones. And I find this whole connection between Snoopy and NASA fascinating. And I loved it when he said that there was some pushback about the connection because people were advising Schulz that if it went wrong, it could kill Snoopy. You know, the reputation of Snoopy could also be tarnished. And I love that Schulz's response to that. When something is successful, you forget that something may have been a risk at some point. And something as simple as connecting a fictional character with a space program seems really innocent, but actually it was a big decision well, perhaps it wasn't a big decision, but it certainly was a decision which some people divide Schulz against. And that's quite fascinating, isn't it, when you look back?
Yeah, and I think it was a brave decision for Schulz to associate his comic strip with the space program, because as Benjamin said, and as you said, the Apollo 1 fire happened in 1967. You know, not long after that, Snoopy was being sort of connected with NASA, and it was kind of becoming NASA's unofficial mascot, I guess you would say. People probably don't remember now, or if they don't remember, they're not aware of it because they may have not been alive back then. But there are people who are like, we need to end Apollo. We need to not go to the moon. It's too dangerous. We don't need to take any risks anymore because people are dying. And conversely, other people were like, these guys had an unfortunate death, but we need to make it worth something. You know, they would want us to go forward and to actually explore the moon and to fulfill what Kennedy said. But, you know, NASA was getting a lot of criticism at the time, you know, some of it rightly so, because there were early issues with the Apollo program. For Schulz allowing, you know, Snoopy and Charlie Brown, you know, very cute, childlike characters to be associated with the Apollo program, that was very brave, I think. And it worked out for the best, but there was definitely that, what if some disaster happened, you know, or what if something horrible happened?
Yeah. I love the fact that they've got this Snoopy award as well, and that it's been given out to so many people. As I said, I've seen one in Oshkosh. I'm assuming you've seen one of these?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of silver Snoopies in the wild, I guess. And they're really cool. And I know a few people who've gotten them, and that it's a really big deal. It's a really big honor to get them and they're adorable. He's wearing a little space helmet.
Yeah, he's adorable. Now, as well as the fact that there's this exhibit going on at the moment at the Schulz Museum at Kennedy Space Center, there's a new show called All Systems Are Go, and it's an immersive experience featuring puppetry and light, sound, and Snoopy and Peanuts. And essentially, the launch director calls on Snoopy and Woodstock to assist with Artemis. And I think it connects with the reason why Snoopy was used as a zero gravity indicator on Artemis 1. But I love this connection with Snoopy and NASA. I hope it continues. I think it's fun. It's just a good bit of fun. And it's nice to see an organization like NASA have fun. I think when you see SpaceX, and they always have these fun at zero G indicators, and they sell out within minutes on the store as soon as people see what they are and things like that. I think SpaceX and other private enterprise have tried to bring the fun into spaceflight, and NASA kind of always has had it, but it doesn't sing about it enough. And you can sometimes forget that actually, you know, it had an Apollo spacecraft called Snoopy and Charlie Brown. Like, that's cool. That's fun. It's a great way of connecting those missions with people back home, and especially in the 60s, late 60s, when Snoopy was such a huge character. So I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it's really cool that they've done it, and long may it continue. Anyway, you can hear the full unedited interview on our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/Space and Things, and find out more about Benjamin and the Schulz Museum and the Snoopy in Orbit exhibit. In the show notes, there'll be some of the links as well. And as I said in the interview, that exhibit is running all the way until January the 14th, 2024.
You're listening to Space and Stuff. What was that? Space and Things. You're listening to Space and Things.
So, Emily, what's caught your eye in spaceflight since last week?
So, a couple episodes, I think, ago, I talked about the Aeolus, the European space craft that was sent into space in 2018 to monitor Earth's winds, and they were going to do a controlled re-entry of it. On Friday, July 28th, the Aeolus spacecraft did re-enter Earth's atmosphere around 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, according to Space.com, and it re-entered over Antarctica. So there was a controlled re-entry as planned. I believe this is one of the first times this has ever really been done for a satellite, which is really cool. I believe Chris Hadfield did put up a video of what he thought was the Aeolus re-entry, but I believe that was not the real re-entry, unfortunately. I don't know if they have actual video of the re-entry or not. So if there is, that's cool, but I don't think that's it, unfortunately, which kind of stinks because I was kind of like, wow, that looks really cool, whatever it is. But so Aeolus did successfully re-enter the planet. I believe the ground controller sent a series of commands to the spacecraft and they safely put it down over the Antarctic. And to my knowledge, the spacecraft just burned up. It didn't, there were no heavy parts that impacted the ground, or there was no, I hate saying this, there was no Skylab type, event where, stuff was, impacting the ground and hurting people, and especially because Antarctica is very sparsely populated. There's not many people there. So that happened on Friday, July 28th, and that's pretty cool. Another thing that happened in the last few days, this story just broke today, was that NASA has lost contact with Voyager 2. Voyager 2 lifted off almost 46 years ago in 1977. It's a little bit old. It's a few months older than I am. But I guess what happened, according to the BBC, last month, the spacecraft tilted its antenna to point 2 degrees away from Earth.
Oh, my God.
So that's all it took was 2 degrees. That's all it took was 2 degrees, and it was like, nope, I'm out. So as a result, Earth is not receiving, the satellite is not receiving commands, and we're not getting any data from it. So according to this article, NASA says it hopes communication will resume when the probe is due to reset in October. And also, according to the article, just so you are aware where Voyager 2 actually is, Voyager 2 is more than 12.3 billion miles, which is 19.9 billion kilometers from Earth. It is traveling at an estimated 34,390 miles per hour, which is 55,346 kilometers an hour through interstellar space. So that is where it is right now. That's a very long distance away from Earth. I believe this is one of the furthest, if not the furthest. I'm not sure if Voyager 1 is further out. I think Voyager 2 is further out, but I could be wrong. Yeah, it's very far away right now. And of course, it explored the solar system, most of the solar system, from 1979 through 1989. Hopefully, they'll be able to reestablish contact in October. But yeah, that's all it took was a 2-degree deviation pointed away from our planet. I mean, that kind of tells you how small things are, like how you have to get things 100% right. Anyway, I hope the person responsible for that is not fired or is not in too much trouble. I know I'm praying that the poor person who did this is not consequenced for it, because stuff does happen. And, one day the Voyagers, I hope not in the near future, but they're going to be retired eventually. I mean, you got to think of it. 46 years is pretty amazing for anything to survive in that environment that long. Like, my mind is blown that it's even transmitting at all at this point. That is what has been on my radar this week. And like I said, hopefully when when NASA reestablishes communication with Voyager again, hopefully in October, we will post a follow-up.
Absolutely.
So, Dave, what has caught your eye this week?
Not too much. I've been a little bit busy, so I haven't had my eyes on the news too much. But I did Euclid's first images. I don't know if you saw this. So this was we briefly mentioned this last month. This was an ambitious telescope of the European Space Agency, which has also gone out to the same Lagrange point where JWST is. And the idea behind this telescope is that it's going to uncover the dark universe and find all the dark matter in the universe. And it's sent back its early commissioning test images, and just like some of the JWST images we've had, they're just breathtaking. So I will post a link to them in the show notes. Also, there's been a fair few articles over the last few weeks gone up about training for the Artemis 2 mission. And the crew have had their splashdown training, and there's been a few images coming out from that. And when that crew was announced, we said we hoped that we got taken along from the journey. And it's great to see that these articles and images and stories and interviews about what's going on is all out there. Whether it's reaching people or not is another thing altogether beyond hardcore people like you and I. But it's great to see this, and it's good fun. Like the splashdown stuff, again, some of my favorite Apollo era images is stuff of them doing their splashdown training. This isn't being done in swimming pools like in the back of a hotel like they were doing back in the Gemini days, but Mercury Gemini days. But,
wherever they could.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still cool to see this the next level on from, well, a few levels on from those Apollo era days. So that's kind of what's caught my eye. Also, another country has signed the Artemis Accords, and I'm always fascinated to see where we're up to with this. It's 28 countries now have signed up, and the latest one is Argentina. Still no China and no Russia, and that's unlikely to ever happen. But the Artemis Accords is this new international agreement which the US is trying to get as many countries to sign up to about how we explore space peacefully, in essence. And it's, I'm so dubious about these kind of things with how, whether people sign up to this or not, is it really going to affect how countries act in space? A lot of these countries aren't even in space.
Yeah.
But alas.
I understand. I sort of feel the same way because like, I look at treaties and accords, they're cool and they're a neat idea, but you can sign a piece of paper and be like, I signed this piece of paper, but I'm doing something else. I'm doing my own thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a lovely idea. I love the idea behind it. I love what is actually in the Accords. If you read them, it's pretty cool stuff. But whether people sign up to it, and it's kind of embarrassing, in my opinion, that only 28 nations have signed up so far. This has been like 2 or 3 years now. It's not a lot.
It's not a lot. Yeah.
But anyway.
No, that's not a lot. There's a lot of countries. So yeah, I agree.
Anyway, on a more positive note, there was a cool Falcon Heavy launch this week, and I will put a video of that in the show notes as well, because Falcon Heavy launches are always fun.
Yeah, I completely missed it. I'm embarrassed. I completely missed it. If it happened early in the morning, I was probably, and I think I had my alarm set, and I totally missed the damn thing.
Oh no. That's a shame.
Yeah, exactly. I woke up and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I overslept. So yeah, I think, menopause won that day. Menopause won Emily like negative 30,000. So yeah, pretty much. So yeah.
There'll be another. Hopefully there'll be another and you can catch that one.
Yeah. I'll watch the video in the show notes.
There you go.
With everybody else.
There you go. Space and Things Podcast, Emily. That's where you need to go. spaceandthingspodcast.com, and you can watch it on there.
I will check it out. Yep, okay. I will catch up.
That's one small step for... Oh my... What is that thing?
Anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us, Sam. Big plans are being made right now, and I posted a list of all these things I'm planning. Actually, I realized afterwards I forgot 2 of them, so I need to go and update that. On our Patreon page this week, a big long list. And of course, when we finish this week's episode, we'll also be making a draw for our monthly Patreon book prize. So please consider joining us over there by heading to patreon.com/space and things. We're also planning a bonus Patreon episode or 2 as well, which will hopefully come out over the next few months.
Thanks to all who have shared the podcast this week. It's really great to see. And also, I'm just going to say another appeal. If you would like to share the podcast with your friends, family, whoever, feel free to do so. If you'd like to give us a rating on any of your favorite podcast providers like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., we also appreciate that as well. So a big thanks to everybody who's doing that. We'd also like to encourage people to keep doing that. So we'll be back next week with lots more Space and Things. But don't forget, in space, no one can hear you mean.
This has been the Space and Things Podcast with new episodes every Thursday.